Today we are replacing the fan clutch on my 1991 Toyota Land Cruiser. This is going to be a pretty straightforward process. It's going to be a little time consuming. Let's get started. Alright, I'm going to recommend you get yourself some nice disposable working gloves, but they're going to help a ton because you're going to be fitting your hand through tight spaces, and it definitely wears on your hands after rubbing against the fan, which is sharp, and the fan shroud and all those belts. The other thing I recommend is getting yourself a 12mm kind of extended wrench, a longer wrench than normal, because it's going to be hard to reach where the fan is. It's quite a tight spot, so definitely get those two things. The last thing I'm recommending is a magnetic reach tool. This is a mechanics reach tool. You can get these basically anywhere, super cheap and very effective for this project. You're going to be able to put the bolt on the magnet and slowly thread it on with your hand, and it's going to help out a ton, I promise you. It's actually a pretty straightforward process. The fan clutch itself only has 4 12mm bolts that attach it to the motor. The next thing we would need to disconnect is the fan shroud that is connected to the radiator, and that itself only has 2 bolts, one right here, and the other one's going to be under the fan shroud right here. It might not look like it in the video, but it's actually really hard to fit your hand and the wrench in between all of this. It's very difficult, so it's going to require a lot of patience, and even though it's only 4 bolts, it does take some time. You will need to try different angles to get it right. Now, I did notice at the end when I was tightening everything that the fan actually will move if it's tightened. So looking back, if you keep one bolt tightened, you could actually move it and move the fan to reach all the rest of the bolts. That's something that I recommend you do if you're going to try this at home. Once removed, you should be able to squeeze out the fan with the fan clutch with the loosened fan shroud. However, I wasn't able to. The only way I saw myself actually taking out the fan clutch is getting rid of this fan shroud. However, the only way to take out the fan shroud was to loosen up this radiator hose, and that was going to spill some radiator fluid. So I got myself a jug, and I'm going to be really quick and switch between the radiator hose and the jug to try to catch some of this radiator fluid. I did spill a little bit of radiator fluid, but I caught a big majority of it, so I'm going to save that for later, and I'm going to pour it back into the radiator once I'm done with it. With the fan out, now we only have 4 bolts to detach the fan from the fan clutch. You're going to need a 10mm socket to loosen that up. After I'm done with that, I'm going to go ahead and wash this, just have it clean and prepped for the new fan clutch. I went with the direct replacement fan clutch. I'll link it in the description if you want to find it. All right, there you have it. It is now installed, and it's time to put it back into the pulley. We're going to put it in just the way we took it out. Alright, to put everything back together, keep in mind you need to disconnect the radiator hose again and put the fan shroud and the fan in the position that they're going to be and put it in at the same time. You might need an extra hand if you didn't take out all the radiator fluid when you disconnected it originally, but if you did, it won't be a big deal. Getting the 12mm bolts back on is a very difficult task. That is why in the beginning I mentioned that you're going to need a magnetic reach tool. This is going to help you get those started. You're going to put the bolt on the tool, and you're going to slowly reach down and thread it by hand. This process is very time consuming and at times can be super frustrating, but just be patient and you should be able to get it done. Once you have them hand tightened, at least some of them, you can start tightening the rest with the longer wrench. Now I'm going to say something that might not be too popular. I'm going to recommend loosening up the power steering pump belt. You're going to be fitting your hands through this quite a bit, and it's going to be very difficult. It's just 2 bolts. It's this one right here and this other one over here, and you just push it down and it will loosen it up, and you can kind of move it out of the way. But getting that out of the way will help a ton in this process. The last thing I'm going to say about this is you might need to loosen up your alternator. That is also 2 bolts that you loosen up. You see that one there? You just follow the other end to it. There's 2 bolts that connect together, kind of like in a T symbol, and you loosen both of those up, and that will help you get your hand in there and finish tightening it up. Alright, that is it. We have finished with the installation of the new fan clutch. This is very important because the fan is what decides how much air the engine gets, and if it goes bad, you could risk a head gasket leak. Let me know if you like this video. Thank you for watching.